Hello, everybody. My name is Asif, and I'm here with Rohit and Lucky for another episode of AyAyAyAi. We're on a Wednesday in the middle of the week. We want to get pumped up and get ready for the future and stay informed about the future through data literacy, through AI literacy, any literacy you can think of that will prepare you for the future. And today we have our bright hopes of the future, Rohit. He's going to talk about his so many experiences that mind boggled me since I've known him, and I'm hoping that he will shine some lights on some of his experience, and we can incorporate machine learning AI into it. So, Rohit, you start with AI. How do you say
Uh, AyAyAyAi.
it?
Yeah, that was good, but you got to hit it like a tone, like ay 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 ay.
Let me try again. AyAyAyAi.
There you go.
There you go. That was excellent. Yeah,
but
but let it flow, my friend.
yeah. Anyways, thanks for the introduction, Steve. Let me introduce myself. So I'm Rohit Dharmadakari. I'm from Delaware. I go to school in the University of Arizona, and I'm studying economics. I was really interested in cybersecurity field when my like past two experiences when I was an IT analyst as Mr. Car Wash. And then I realized after being in a car wash, I was like, man, people don't know anything about technology. Like, I think one of the worst experiences I've had, or the funniest experiences, was I had to reset a printer in a different location, and the person just didn't put the printer paper in. And I like went through the system, like logged, like resetted the entire system, and then and I made sure I was like, hey, did you put printer paper in? He was like, yeah. Everything looked right on my end, so I was like, "Are you sure there's nothing?" He goes, "Is there supposed to be printer?" And I'm like, "Yes, there's supposed to be printer in this." So that was my experience with IT and cybersecurity, and that's when I kind of fell in love with it because I was like, maybe this is not for everyone, but this is for me because I realized that not everyone is on the same page.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right, and we have to be there for the middle. To bridge that gap for the individuals. In some cases, they need just a little bit of help. And that technology, for some reason, is easier for others than it is for some. And I'm glad that you're there for us. Rock on.
Yeah, and I mean I guess the biggest thing with my school, and I always tell the students because I'm a TA as well, is stop being on like instead of being on social media, like learn about it and then go on it because it relates to cybersecurity and IT. And some students like say thank you to me. Some students just don't listen to me because I mean we're even born with phones, so it's can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, it's the literacy's perspective, right? You go to school to get educated, or do you go to school to find a job, right? Two different ideas. So perspective matters. So when it comes to data literacy, it's like, is this data for me to steal, or is it data for me to use, right? Stealing data and using data is two different topics, but a lot of the corporation, a lot of the organizations, a lot of the individuals, well, we all have a different sort of perspective when it comes to how we approach anything in life, but especially with some of the technology that we have. Because when we turn on TV, somebody of say, AARP age, 50 plus, right? They turn on TV. They don't think TV as an IoT device. They don't think TV
Yeah.
as a Internet of Things because they're using Netflix as they're watching TV. They're not thinking much of everything that's happening around them. Even the surrounding is changing. They're not thinking Netflix as an IoT. They don't think a fridge is an IoT, or they're not thinking the washer and dryer as being IoT. So they have a different perspective of it, right? So even if they're using this, they're not understanding it, right? And there's a bridge between using and understanding, because once you understand something, you have better trust in it. And that's what we try to do in this podcast, where we try to build a bridge of trust between the users and developers, right? Um, Many layers of developers, many level of users. But if we can bring that user experience and understanding of that experience, combine that together, maybe bring that a bridge a little bit closer, we build more trust in it, right? And of course, me being an AI advocate, my biggest fear, not that AI will go rogue and AI will do all the crazy things like Will Smith and robots and fighting each other. Not going to happen, not in my opinion. But in my opinion, the fearful thoughts that I have, which is to say, if you develop an AI and there's no trust behind it, it will not be utilized as much as it should be because it's enabled to scale an AI and able to sustain that AI for future usage. We'll have to develop a trust, and that trust is very important. Yeah, like you mentioned somebody on social media uses social media but doesn't understand social media. You come to a different conclusion, and when your trust is broken, it rapidly goes down the hill, right? But if you understand it, you actually try to build up on that trust. It's like, okay, all right, hold on, I'll give it a little. I'll give you a break. I'll give you a break. So Facebook has have had about 18 breaks in the last 18 years because they trusted and they've taken advantage of your trust so often. They're still lingering with their social media platform. But as you see, other platforms are coming into the town like TikTok. Of course, Instagram is part of Facebook, but all the social media range of social media usage you have, users not understanding how that platform works, their ability to leave that platform overnight, it just becomes easier because you have no trust. Why even stick around, right? If you have to leave, you leave. So when you see people going towards TikTok in a drove that no other social media platform have seen since the inception of what Friendstar, right? Friendstar was one of the first social media. MySpace before MySpace.
MySpace.
Uh,
I
so
honestly was
they
not.
leave. They leave very fast because they don't have the trust.
Well, I have a question for you. You know, us like the older generations, um, and I'm in my 40s, right? I think about privacy because it started to grow when as government gets more into governing, you have individuals like myself that don't want to be governed, and so privacy becomes a big thing. And we've watched it kind of our privacy just kind of erode with the internet. So people of your generation, they're used to seeing, they're desensitized when it comes to because all these technologies, all these platforms were just a way of getting out. Do you see privacy being an issue with your generation? Like, do they care?
Uh, I honestly have had this conversation with many people, and no, they don't care. It's kind of sad because, I mean, I grew up with a phone. I mean, my first phone wasn't a smartphone, but it was like I grew up when I was younger with like a smartphone. But like, people don't realize like how much information you're actually putting of yourself on the internet, and they don't realize like now with how much data that's been like that they have, they know more about us than we know about ourselves. They know like, for example, like when we're go like when we wake up, what's our first app. So that's why when you like go down on your like scroll down your iPhone, it gives you suggestions because it reads how your patterns are. And not many people in like my generation really think about that. They just care, hey, it's a new social media app, it's a new thing, let me just use it to stay like on the trend. But what is the trend? I think at some point it's like, for example, like I know I sound a little biased. Like I'm a digital minimalist, which means I don't really use social media a lot. Like I have Instagram and Snapchat, but I don't have it on my phone. I hate TikTok. Will never use TikTok in my life. Not a Twitter fan. All I do is I text, and like everyone calls me an old head because like my three biggest things are text, call, and FaceTime. I hate everything else because it's like that's the most simplest way of communication, in my opinion. Plus, like I can do everything I can do on social media. Like I can send photos to people. I can send like for example Snapchat. I can just send photos to people and like have a caption like by text. And I just don't think that people in my generation actually think about that. They just think about like they just want to follow trends because like for example, if you think about trends like when the sneakers came like when the sneakers trend came out, no one really cared about like the price of the shoe. They just cared, hey, I want to be popular. That we're kind of falling into the same thing with social media. It's like if you don't have this, you're not popular. Like for example, now and we have a new there's a new app called Be Real, which is a competitor of Snapchat, and now everyone is getting onto that. But if they read like the data, like the privacy and stuff like that, like you'll actually understand what information is getting taken out, but they don't really want to think about that. and it's really sad because at some point it's gonna turn against us, and that's why like I don't have TikTok because I don't really trust a lot of like the stuff like I read the terms and conditions and I just didn't really like
Yeah,
their terms and conditions.
yeah, yeah. The terms and conditions are scary if you actually sit there and read. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh! Not only can I connect to your phone, I'm going to connect to your computer. I'm going to connect to everything. I own you at
yeah,
that point. Yeah, I feel the same way about Zoom. Asif thinks that we joke because our platform has struggled because of me. Zoom is an open platform; it works great for many, but for me, I'm anti Zoom, and we had to use it last week. But there's some technologies that you already know how they work, and you already understand the how vulnerable they put you, and so you have an utterance for you. Like, all right, I'm not going to have it. I already know that I'm not going to allow that type of service or application around me because I already know at one point I'm opening myself up, and if you're concerned, then great. Some people don't care at all whatsoever. So it's refreshing to hear someone from your generation's actually concerned about their privacy because I really see, it's just desensitizing. People don't know, and not I'm not going to get into religion or anything like that, but there's a way that you can kind of feed people information and they think it's the norm. And as you get raised in this technology world, people don't understand that the norm is maybe something that could be, taking their rights, their privacy, taking their information without them even knowing, and they don't care, and say people out there just aren't aware.
and when you're talking
Yeah.
about like the news, do you mean like, for example, with the new like social media outlets, you can like post like news that may not be true, and I've seen this all over. Like I've seen this more on TikTok and Twitter than anything else. But like they're posting their opinions, but they make it sound like it's a news, so people actually agree with that.
So
And I
that's a
Or
sad
bots.
statistics that we just came up with, right? That now instead of Google search, people are searching in TikTok, and one out of four, excuse me, one out of five things that people are searching has false information in it, right? So it's a very condensed amount of information for a user that's on the phone, and they see maybe 10 articles if they search on TikTok, and out of 10, if there's two false or eight false, it's going to be a sad state of affair because what we talked about before TikTok, we said we were already divided as far as information goes because you hear people from the other side, right? And he said like, what? Like, I don't understand that. Like, whatever you understand, I'm not understanding that at all. Like, I just, I can have communication with you and hi, hello, but after that, our dialogue doesn't really go far because the rest of it I don't understand, even though we're speaking the same language, right? It's the information bubble that you create with social media. Now that the social media platform that you are utilizing is not owned by the Chinese government, but literally is regulated by the Chinese government, and that has been proven over and over because BuzzFeed and all these other people that have spied on on the TikTok boardrooms, they were able to find out that there's information that the Americans are not privy to understand. Right? They don't know that their user action is being sent to Chinese government for Chinese government to understand how to manipulate and create a bigger bubble inside of a country that doesn't necessarily have to be US. You can control many other countries by these bubbles. So let's say, for example, Philippines, right? Philippines have this island nationality mentality where their bubbles are vicious. So when you look at the division between people in the U.S. and the 50 different states, you can only imagine in a smaller island nation what could happen when you have divisive information splitting the national and the communities apart with two different sets of ideas. So they're communicating using the same language, but they're over talking to each other because the bubble is so different, right? So terms and conditions. Oh man, I look. I'm all for terms and conditions because there's a joke about in Family Guy where they talked about terms and conditions. They said like, you didn't read the terms and condition, but at one point somebody will come up to you and punch you in your face, and you have to be okay with that because you hit I agree button right without reading the
Exactly.
terms and condition. So look, terms and condition is an issue, but the issue that gets even more massive is because this ability for an organization to create a psychological operation, right, within the user community, right, and I don't have to go overseas to talk about TikTok. I don't have to talk about a
Hmm.
Chinese company. I can talk about Facebook. Facebook has done a and B testing using users' ability to maintain their emotional well-being, right? So
Yeah.
they literally apologize. Of course, like I said, 18 times they have apologized for all the evil shit that they have done. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
they apologized, said that we fed the user knowingly emotional content, as in angry content, content that will make you cry, content that will make you giggle, content that will make you feel certain ways. So they did an A and B testing to figure out like what works on people. And these people didn't sign a terms and conditions to say like from now on you will test on me and I'll be okay with that testing. Feed me all the contents that makes me rage out, right? Feed me all the contents that are like, just super violent, right? Feed it to me, man. Feed it to me. They did not have that option. Facebook did it on their own. They pick and choose people and they fed them the content over and over. And just to see how they react, just to see how long Facebook can continue with this kind of research. Messing with people's ability to make decision, right? Um, with all that being said, I just want to point out the fact that these are powerful tools that are being utilized uh, uh, against a community or against individuals. But it could be also on the other side that you use this tool to be more powerful, right? So those are powerful tools that are just not like, oh, he owns it, she owns it, or they own it, right? If you use this tool, that means you also have part ownership to it because now you can use those tools to empower yourself.
Hmm.
How do you go about it requires some self discipline, I would say, because like you said, Rohit, you don't use a lot of the social media platform. Even though you're a user, you stay away from it. You do the abstinence, right? You stay away from the social media until you need to use it here and there, right? But don't get bogged down by it on a daily basis. You have the power over it, but you have to use those power in order to empower yourself, not empower somebody else, right? And artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is a podcast about AI and machine learning. These are crucial importance of understanding, right? If we were to develop an AI product, if we were to develop any sort of machine learning tools that are powerful, that we as an organization can utilize, but the users don't understand it, don't see it, or don't feel comfortable with it, or have these misperceptions or good information that is, pretty much evil, right? They will not trust your AI product. They will not trust your machine learning product, right?
Yeah.
It could cause an organizational issues because whatever trust you have built so far, and all of a sudden you have this machine learning platform that's taking away that trust. Do you really want to invest all the money into it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of questions here, not a whole lot of answer, but I do want to point out the fact is these are powerful tools for people to use, and if people use it to empower themselves, great. Otherwise, they're just being used, right? If you're in a freemium, you are the product. You're not
Yeah.
using the product. If you're
Hmm.
in the freemium market and using the freemium apps, you are the product. They're just researching on you. They're using your data. They're using you in many ways to, embolden their databases.
And speaking of databases, there, we mentioned this several times. The depending on what you're trying to build, the algorithm or the machine learning or the AI you're trying to build, it's all depends on the data. That your what you're trying to build is only going to be good as the data, garbage in, garbage out. So kind of on that note, you there's ways of collecting data, and I think you've had some experience on special data collections, and I think everyone would like to know more about some of the things you've done in the past with like data collections, like vitals and things like that. What type of experience do you have? I know you had something interesting we talked about earlier. Can you give us some background on how that works and what you did in the past? Uh,
Yeah. So, if you're talking about the biotech health one,
yes, yes.
so basically, what the product was, it's called a biostabilizer, and it's basically implemented into your back, and they're able to see what in your back goes is wrong. So how they do that is they basically data, like they run a bunch of experiments, which is kind of like data, and then they filter it out, and they say, okay, I'm not too familiar with the anatomy of like your back. So like for example, if the vertebrae is like an L5 or like an L4, like
L6,
or yeah,
L4, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So for example, if my L5 is not like like working properly, this product would basically run a bunch of tests saying like if a certain amount of pressure is put into like the left section compared to the right section, what side is actually going to uh, feel worse than left or right, and it kind of takes away it like helps. For example, like let me give like a tennis player, and I work with an athletic trainer on my shoulder. They do it like by hands, like she'll like my trainer will be able to figure out where's my injury by just trying to point it out. But this product is removes the need of that person and just goes through a bunch of data and a bunch of experiments to see what is going wrong. And they're using this product for they're trying to sell it to like hospitals and stuff because it's at this point like biotech is going to be, and like I said ag tech in like past, like biotech and ag tech is going to be one of like is starting to come up more and more. It already has, but it's like these new things because machine learning and like because of like where like AI able to get a lot of like data more than we're able to even like comprehend. These products will revolutionize like how we go to basically a normal doctor. If I would go to a normal doctor, they just had to put the product on my back. All they have to do is just read the data. They don't even have to like they don't have to like actually like examine me anymore because they're like, hey, this is the data tells me this, and typically more like with more data, it's more right because we have a human bias.
Wow. I've seen so much of that where they're using AI to identify error rates and identify ways of helping people, or identifying cancer. And then with this being able to identify areas, because my back is killing me right now. I'd be honest. Man, I tell you, I've had problems with my TL, I don't know, between my shoulders, whatever
Yeah.
that area is. I've had so many problems, and so man, that not that okay, doctors are not going to ever be one of those things that you can just dismiss, and
Yeah.
nursing is one of those other things. But to have an AI that can help people faster, because I think the back has always been the kind of the question mark for doctors, because you got doctors, and then you have chiropractors, right? These are the guys that the pop specialists that say, okay, you got a problem, I'll pop you in certain ways, boom, you're good. And then some of that stuff I think is maybe it's I don't want to offend anyone, but at the end, if you're a chiropractor, but some of it, you don't know if it's actually going to help you, or if you're going to need some kind of medical procedure, or if they just, they hide it with pills, or they figure out a way to ease the pain. Either way, the back is a very difficult thing to work on. And to hear that biotech, and they're saying, you know what, now we're doing AI and figuring out patterns of identifying ways to um, identify problems with your back easily, more readily than they were before, is amazing. That's fantastic, and that's today, right? That's
Yeah.
actually working today.
Hmm.
Wow,
And
wow.
to go on your note with the chiropractors, I honestly go to a chiropractor because I like getting my bones popped and it sounds cool. That's all.
I know,
but
right?
but but if you had some statistics behind it to say like for my age, for my range of nationality, or I was not that's not the word, not the nationality, but like for ethnic background for myself, like what's our body structure like, how does it work for us? So ancestry.com, 21 and Me, and all these other genetic companies that are researching these and taking in all this information, they're able to give you a statistics behind what sort of body frames do you have. like what's strength in your bones, like what's your deficiency in your body that might not fit the groceries that you go to and eat your food from, right? Or sort of fast food place that you go to, how do they affect your body versus the body of somebody who's not from your ethnic background? So there's lots of variables that you have to work with in order to provide that statistics and that data that has to be very accurate with least amount of bias, right? A good amount of bias, but I guess it has to be very well crafted, right? Um, Long story short, lots of data, lots of algorithms, and then have the ability to have the right type of people engaged in it. Somebody who can say all the L5s and L6 in a short sequence, but have it right. Compared to me and you, we don't know much about our back, even though we live with one all of our lives, right? We know more about bottom of the ocean than we know about our brain. We don't know much about our body. We know
Yeah.
more about places under the ocean that we have never been to, but we live with a body and we know very little about it. And one of the things that will build trust in technology and medical treatment is that having that statistics of saying like, okay,
Hmm.
for your particular DNA and ethical. Oh my God, I cannot talk today. Sorry. Ethnic background. These are the sort of things you have.
Yeah.
These are the sort of
Yeah.
things you have to be aware of. Now, in general, you have these sort of deficiencies, or this is the sort of things that are strong in your body that you might not need to take vitamin D, because vitamin D is not lacking in your body like some of the
Yeah.
other ethnic background will have missing from their body.
Yeah.
Or say it's very lacking. You need to have these kind of things. Like for me, I have cholesterol not because I ate bad food, which I do eat bad food, but because of my ancestry, right? My
Yeah.
ancestry gives me cholesterol that I cannot help. I've had bad cholesterol since I was 21 years old. um, so I'm ranting on about all these topics here is because it builds a trust again, right? It's machine learning, it's AI that are being utilized for medical treatment, medical devices, and just the medical practice in general, right? So there's a whole lots of layers where the AI and machine learning comes into play, and this machine learning needs a whole lot of data, and they need those data to be collected for a very very long time, not because Rohit said I have a back problem. Can you do some back data for me and then have it be ready from yesterday, right? We have to
Yeah.
have a long-term data collection about a human body, specifically on the back, and sort of like have those breakdown. Like, what sort of bone structure do you have? How does that impact your back, right? I think one of the guests that came in, they literally said by researching your spine, they're able to understand what sort of disease you're prone to have, not today, but 10 years from now. And what sort of steps should you take in order to prevent that from happening? Because your spine is like a central network that is not your brain, right? But your brain literally runs off of that network of spine, right? Your spine is what's feeding your whole brain, right? You don't have to have a brain; you have to have a spine first, in my opinion, right? Because whatever the growth of a brain that comes from a spine is the type of brain you will have, because your spine is what's feeding all the information to the brain. The brain is the data center. Rest of it is what's actually real, right?
Yeah.
Um, so with machine learning and artificial intelligence, we see some things that are just upfront, which is that give me that device that works in machine learning and AI and has that backing of machine learning data that is well, mm, uh, well structured, or sanitized very well, or
Mhm.
has a good professional subject matter expertise that are helping with the biases and data to capture what's happening in the device. But the other side, the far spectrum of device, is just the research. Like, what about those data that cannot produce a hardware, cannot produce a device that you can feel and touch with your hands, right? So between me and you, like somebody who doesn't work in medical profession, but like somebody like a doctor who's going to be able to say, just from data that is in front of me in the monitor, I'm able to detect you
Yeah.
with whole sorts of problems that you might have as an individual, right? Because there's no device that you need, but you have a human that's able to just look through the data and say, yeah, comparing to like, say for example, for the babies, they have this percentage, right? uh, how much weight does this baby have? Okay, what percentile are they in, right? It could be up to 30 percentile, 50 percentile. If you're in a 50 percentile with your age group, you're fine. But if you're under 30 or 20, we should be worried about it. But now imagine there's another age group that is not national age group, right? That's like an ethnic age group that will say, yeah, that 20%, that's a national average. This is not 20% in this ethnic group. This is about 70, right? So this kind of information that does not require a device, but requires a statistics and a lot of data collection, I think it is super important. And what's happening today is that we are getting closer and closer to use this data very fast and rapidly and come up with a conclusion at a decision or a treatment much faster. Um, it's kind of scary for a lot of people because
Yeah.
people don't understand, how can I trust what's being said to me by
Hmm.
somebody who knows this data very well, who researches very well, because I don't understand how an AI or machine learning works. Because the AI machine learning that I know of is a Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
right? So there's a trust missing because they use medical facilities and medical treatment or medical services a lot, but they don't understand it. I mean, that's just medical without AI. Now that you have medical and AI machine learning coming together, holy crap! Right? Like,
Well, it's one of those
how
things.
to
It's one
trust
of those
it?
things. Yeah, no, I agree with it, but it's one of those things that, okay, are we going to become where we become, okay, and you have to really follow me here. Are we are we coming to an age where we're going to accept AI, and AI becomes an appendage, almost like an extra arm, where we become more like cyborgs, where Neuralink and we talked about earlier. And you can elaborate it more on where we can have chips that are, much like when you chip your dog,
Implanted,
Yeah.
implanted.
implanted, when you chip your dog. But these chips are not there just to give you a reader, address, but these chips actually have uh, proactive, communication, where you go back and forth, where the others, they just have a reader. These are going to be actually implants that can provide data on the host. And there's going to be tons of different data, much like you said with the back. There's different types of technology that have built up the data enough to where they know how to analyze our bodies. Now they can measure the charge in our brain now to be able to say, okay, we know what how to take data out from your brain and measure it. Now we can measure the impulses. What experience do you have with that? Because I know you have something interesting with the implants. How does that work?
Um, Honestly, I really don't like the implants is more the livestock, so I can touch on that with the livestock like
Yeah, yeah,
wise.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh,
That's fine.
so basically, like what you're saying was it. Another company I worked for, like they had a chip system that basically goes into the livestock and it reads their vital signs. And with that, I don't know what it actually directly attaches on because that was actually a good question you brought up before. I was still thinking about that. I'm gonna ask my former boss because I actually saw him recently when I went to Canada. But uh, how the process works is like basically you're looking at a computer screen and it's just a bunch of vitals. So like an average Joe, you're not able to read really like vital signs. You could be like, oh, cool lines, and then this is a terrible joke, but like in the movies when when they're in a hospital bed and it just flatlines. That's when you're able to read that's when you're only able to read the vitals, in my opinion, at least for me. but
Yeah, right.
uh,
That's the one that
uh,
makes sense.
yeah, it's like if it's not moving, then I was like, oh, that wait, is that person
Yeah.
alive? But
Yeah. Is there beeping going on here? What's that beeping now?
yeah, but with like the livestock, basically, this system contacts doctors right away, which is actually really interesting because if you think about it, if you like to go back to your point, if we have a chip system that's implemented into us, doctors would know and like healthcare providers would know when we're sick before we're sick. For example, maybe if we get chipped, like I'll give you like a livestock like example, like if a cow is pregnant, the system will actually call the nearest doctor. That's why we have to get mobile base stations because they need to like they need like the system will actually automatically like schedule a doctor and stuff like that. Because in livestock, typically the doctor comes there because we can't really. I mean, you can bring a big trailer, but like it's more rare. I mean, it's more often that the doctor will come to the farm. So if we did that the same thing with the humans and stuff like that, I honestly think it'd be interesting to see how we do that because if we're doing this livestock, if you think about it, we've evolved from primates. We've evolved from monkeys. We're technically we've like they if they do this same thing with if they do this testing with animals and stuff like that, they probably do. They're just like they're not really telling us, but it would be a big, in my opinion, it'd be a huge ethical issue of like I don't know if y'all remember, like when they were like everyone was thinking like the COVID vaccine was just not even a real vaccine; it was just to get everyone microchipped. I feel like that would happen again because everyone, like, even though like when we're talking back, like people don't care about privacy, they I feel like they would care about what we put inside our system and what because right now our phones we don't really put it in our systems. It's like a personal handheld device that you can stop at any time. But once you put something in our system, it's kind of like the movies like Suicide Squad where they had our they had chips implemented in the system, and if they don't follow the rules, they die. So I feel
Right.
like
Yeah.
people are
Oh
gonna be worried.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think Lucky brought up a good
Kill Bill.
point of how what I understand AI and machine learning should be, and one that I would recommend. Like we're on board with about this stuff because, like, you know, if an AI or machine learning is an extension of your body that is not implemented in your body, it's perfect. So you look at Apple Watch. You put it on, it's able to tell if you're ovulating, if
Yeah,
you have
Yeah.
another person growing inside of you, and what sort of body changes are you going through just from your pulse, right? So it's able to do what you just said, which is take it off and it's gone. It's no longer near you. You can go 1,000 miles away from it. It's not going to follow you home, right? These kind of technology I can get behind. And what happens with this kind of technology is that we build whole lot of data and whole lot of consensus together if we can do it right. Right. So I like how Apple has a lot of approach about data privacy, and some of the actions they've taken. Some of the actions that they've taken is really, really bad. For example, they pretty much came out and said we're scanning all the photos that you take in order to understand who you are as a person, what kind of photos you're taking. It's really bad because they literally have a profile on you that Facebook will only have a wet dreams about, right? Facebook can nowhere near get to Apple's status of collecting data on you. Because
Wow.
Apple is literally listening, literally watching you, literally measuring your heartbeat with your Apple Watch, and watching how many steps you take a day, everything. Like it has so much data. But this is the type of company that we trust because we have some sort of understanding, but not a whole lot, but some sort of understanding. And with this type of technology, the data. So at this point, we're pretty much talking about a, uh, a data sensors, right? These are the sensor points where the data is coming from. Now, when you mash them together, you find a data fabric where you'd use you use your Apple phone, Apple hand watch, you got your Apple TV, you got your home secured by Apple cameras. You got all sorts of stuff. They're talking about Apple cars. Maybe Apple will invent cars soon, whatever the case is, right? So you have data mesh, the data fabric that you're developing in order to get a full picture of how to give you that good health, a good early detection, if not a good home security, right? Yeah. Is your body healthy? We can help you with that. Is your body deteriorating somehow? We can help you with that. Or if not, do you prefer to keep your home secured? Because, we're able to give you a better home security because all the products are interconnected using the IoT sensors, right? Your
yeah,
Apple phone is an IoT sensor. It has all sorts of sensors built into it in order to collect information and data. And if you combine this data and you develop a machine learning technology and capability, you are able to engage with the customer in a different level of intimacy, right? Different
Hmm.
level of trust that you build with that. And I see the resistance behind it, but like this podcast is about, it's about to educate people about AI machine learning. Both side of it. There's bad and good. But the bad is bad as long as you don't understand what that bad is. Just like you understand good, so you trust it, right? But if you don't understand bad, you will always hate bad.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there because, like, Lucky, you said if it's an extension of your body, you have to build it as an extension of your body. It has to augment your lifestyle. It has to augment your business process. It has to augment your national security. It has to augment your international relations, whatever the case is. It has to augment. It has to be an extension of your capabilities rather than to say, well, this thing is a burden. This thing is just ruining my life. I don't know how to frame that properly, but the correct use of AI machine learning is to how an AI machine learning can augment or extend your capabilities.
Mhm. You know what? I got a real, I got a vision, not really a vision, but I thought about, this, the fact that we're having so many things help us and help. The honest truth is we live longer now. They said we live longer hundreds of years ago, but now I know from statistics we live longer than we did 20 years ago because of medical breakthroughs. But what you guys remember the movie Wall-E? Do you guys remember
Yeah.
what Wall-E?
Sure.
So yeah, the world outside of the world being destroyed, but you see the 5-10 shots or minutes of them with the actual living humans living in space, and they are so spoiled because they have AI doing everything for them. They have these alternate worlds. They're everything that we see and project probably being a bad thing. The way they made it, it was fantastic. And at the end, we end up being these gelatin balls of just human flesh that are in a chair that all we do is just live in an alternate augmented reality because our real world has been destroyed. But getting to the point is that we can get to the point where we either the AI runs us, or we just become submissive to the AI, or the AI is part of us and we control the
Right.
AI. And who knows the direction? But to me, for the young generation, is to be able to mold that AI and keep that, where it becomes not we don't become subservient to AI, except for it helps us become a better humanoid version of ourselves. And I don't know what that is, if we're cyborg or if we're not, but I would hate to see a future where we just are just like the cattle and we're being driven around, led around by AI, and that would be scary.
Yeah.
That alien spaceship, or not the spaceship, but the air spacecraft that they had in Wally was pretty
Yeah.
amazing. I gotta say, it's an amazing vehicle that they've built to be floating around in space. Uh,
Yeah. To add on that, well, I have two things. Actually, I kind of lost my first one, but but if you think about like the metaverse, that's kind of the way we're kind of going right now. If you think about it, I know it's like a long shot. Everyone's saying the metaverse. It's like, what the hell is a metaverse? But like, you can buy property there. You can go like, one thing I recently like saw this on YouTube recently. Like, people are smoking cigs and buying cigs off the metaverse, and just like playing pool and hanging out with people, and like it's basically you just put on goggles and then you escape the reality. Like, and I
Yeah.
like last year, I walked my friend back to his house, and his roommate was like in his room, right? I tried having a conversation. And I was like, "Hey, this guy's not feeling well. Can you please take care of him?" This guy is in the metaverse, like pretend I have a goggles. He's like listening to me and playing, and I'm like, "This is the people like that's what we're gonna turn into if they don't know
Yes.
what the hell is happening around them." Like, this entire like, I honestly think we're part cyborg, even if we're not. Like, we don't have anything really embedded in me. But like, if you ask this question, for me, it's like for my generation, it's gonna be very different. How long can you be without your phone? If you can't be like, there are people with that can't be with their phone like for
Yep.
almost like 10-15 minutes.
Yep.
If you think about that, like a definition of like a cyborg is like, yeah, you have like artificial intelligence in like engraved into your system, but if you can't be with your like mobile device for like 10 to 15 minutes, can't you be technically part cyber because you're so used to like having
Mm-hmm.
something around you? And it's like, it basically, like, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
if you guys are interested in this book, by the way, there's this book called The Age of Dopamine, like Age of Dopamine, and this quote hits me. Like, so, basically, I'm a preceptor for like an discussion class, and and one of the quotes like hit me. The quote was, "When when like people are bored, we're on our phones." Because if you think about it, like at least my generation, like whenever there's nothing to do, like I'll hang out with my friends, and we have no conversation or anything. What do? They look at their phones. They could just do anything on their phones, but like they're so invested. That's like their third life. Like, I remember what was the game from The Office where Dwight was playing? Like Second Life or something. That's our phone. Like there's so many apps where you could just basically do that, and it's at some point it's like when is
Wow.
enough enough?
That
Um,
that's like a sub layer of consciousness that wasn't there before, and it's kind of like ignorance is bliss. You know, it doesn't matter because as long as we're just zoned out, that's another level of consciousness, and they don't care if they're lost because ignorance is bliss, and a lot of people live that way, and that's scary, but it's very true. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
um,
interrupt you, Asif.
no, no, no. I'm fascinated by this conversation because we're not really talking about technology here so much. We're talking about more of the principles and ethics and this morality behind what it is like to be a human and how do you value human capacities and human lives and all sorts of ways I'm going about this conversation. And that's what it means to have technology. Like, is a technology a platform to give rise to all the things that you need in life, or is it a technology to take things away from you, and leave you with blank, right? Leave you with meaning, like leave you with a meaning that has nothing to do with you, right? That meaning that you have is meaning that you have through social media, right? Some of the things that you have described, somebody's meaning of life is through their social media friendship and
Yeah.
social media followers, social media activities. Like you talked about somebody buying something and hanging out in a VR world. They're talking about buying outfit, right? You can buy your Nike for your avatar. You can buy your Nike shoes for your avatar, and then use that avatar to go into cool places where people will see, oh, you're wearing Nike. Well, I beat you to the punch, brother, because I got something fancier than Nike. And these are all avatars. Somebody literally wrote a code on how to put a logo on a shoe, right? These are not even being made in child labor facilities over factories over in
Oh
Vietnam or something
wow.
like that, right? So the I think I went off track a little bit, but I want to go back to that meaning of what it is that you're trying to accomplish through your phone. So it's technology that takes you away from uh, the time that you have in this earth as a human and the space that you occupy. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of the time that you spend here and the space that you occupy as a person? Because of course, once you disappear, you no longer occupy a space above the ground. You're underground, right? Or you shoot yourself up to the space, which I think is cool as hell. That you just shoot yourself up to the Mars, right? And that's going to happen sooner or later. But going back to that meaning of it, that time and space that you occupy, you're not having any meaning behind it. Now, I want to get to the positive of everything I just said negatively, right? Space and time that you occupy in this real world. In my office, I don't have access to so many other places that I can be right now physically, but through virtual reality or AR, the augmented reality, I can actually visit those places without really leaving my house, right? So the space and time still continues here, but I'm utilizing the space and time much more meaningfully, as in I'm able to engage to take more into my the meaning of whatever it is that space and time provides me, right? So the meaning could be that I'm in social media buying shoes, or I'm in VR world having conversations with people that are like you guys, right? This is me in a space and time that I'm in the office. I'm having a conversation with Rohit about something very meaningful and something very productive, right? Helps me through my life, if not today, definitely tomorrow, right? Um, I'm trying to spin it to the positive with the VR, with all this other technology, but it's about how you use the technology rather than technology itself is the bad one, right? And then this technology has another side to it, which is the data, right? So we didn't build technologies for the sake of technology. We built the technology in order to feed data into it and have the data come out of it, right? It's a feedback loop, right? We don't create, the engineers love talking about feedback loop, right? Engineers will never create something that has half a feedback. It has to have a feedback loop. Whatever goes in must come out, right? So everything in this universe has a feedback loop. So if you develop a technology that has a feedback loop to it and the data is going in, data has to come out.
Yeah,
So you have a control as a technology user to put that data out. How do you do it? It's up to you, right? A lot of people are doing technology, the advancing of technology by sharing knowledge. through technology, right? So we're developing more technology using old technology, and we will continue using this technology just like we have for thousands of years. Um, Speaking of a book, I just want to throw this out there: 21 Rules to Live By in 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, right? Anything you read from Yuval Noah Harari will blow you away. But these podcasts, literally everything we're talking about is literally described in 21 Rules to Live By in 21st Century.
Nice.
Um, we talked about sensors that are able to read our body. What's it
Vitals.
called?
Our
Vitals.
vitals. Yeah.
Our vitals. We're talking about technologies that are helping us to communicate. So all these things have space and time built into it. How do you occupy that space and how do you use that time has to have some meaning behind it. And I just want to end with the last piece of it. This is the most important part of it. Rohit, and all the key use cases that you provided and all the use cases that I can think of, it all comes down to a decision to make it meaningful or not. How do you make it meaningful is a decision process that you have to go through, right? So when I advocate for AI machine learning, what I'm actually advocating is for decision science, right? Decision science has been around for 50 some years in academic world, but of course, as a human being, we're a subject matter expert in making decisions because that's all we have done all our lives, right? Lucky knows this. I've mentioned it many, many times. If you calculate how many decisions you make a day, you make about 31,000 decisions a day.
Yeah.
So if you're not a subject matter expert in decision making, nobody is because you've made so many decisions all your life already, right? Every 24 hours, you make average of 31,000 decisions. So decisions to make it meaningful or not to make it meaningful, it's not up to technology. It's up to the person who's utilizing that technology, right? To make it meaningful, you have to have a decision. And I think one of the things that I mentioned earlier about a bubble that we create with social media, it's what is deteriorating right now is our capability of making those decisions. It's deteriorating our decision making capabilities to a point that we no longer have the control over the decisions we make because somebody else is creating those decision making capabilities for us. We're still making decisions. Don't get me wrong. Just because you're in social media and you commit a crime, you do not get punished because social media made you do it, right? Social media doesn't go to prison. You do. So you still have the decision making capability. It's just that somebody else is controlling your decision making capability, right? And again, Yuval Noah Harari describes it far better than I can, but you don't have a hour to listen to Yuval Noah Harari. It's longer than that. So within an hour, within 10 minutes, I'll try to explain it to my best capabilities possible. Is that you as a human being, you have the decision making capability, but the meaning behind everything you do is coming from your decision making capabilities, right? Um, don't get me wrong, like that's not the only steps there, right? Just like an artificial intelligence that we're developing, which is mimicking our human brain, it has to go through a process of identifying, labeling, and making decisions,
Yeah.
right? So I will get you a little bit deeper into the psychology of social media or all the things that they have researched in order to manipulate our decision making capability is not by targeting decisions, but rather targeting the labeling capabilities, right? So if a system uses five senses, it will identify, it will label, and it will make a decision. And that decision, like I said, 31,000 times a day, gives you the awesome ability to be an adult predictability machine. Because more decisions you make, more predictability you can achieve, right? Um, but if social media is not targeting your decision making capability, it's targeting your labeling capability. It's telling you how to label what's cool and what's not, what's hot, what's not, what's something, what's not, right? Like what's awesome and what's not. So these labeling capabilities, it's what's being targeted, not your decision making capability. But through the labeling, you make decisions. And AI machine learning does exactly that. It gets really good at identifying using computer vision, computer sound, computer audios, and tactile senses, and taste and smell senses, right? It gets really good at identifying, but it doesn't have a good reliable data to label it properly. So as it labels it, now it's able to train itself to make decisions by human reinforcement learning or human supervised learning. right? So these three steps that machine goes through, we do that since the day we were born. We just learn it over time because we've been given that opportunity to learn over time, right? But
Yep.
for an AI machine learning, people are like, no, you got to learn that by tomorrow because I don't have time to raise you for the next 100 days. We've only been given the budget for one day.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. But the point is, labeling is what's being targeted, and labeling is very important in machine learning, but it's also in our psyche for our ability to make decisions. And when people are targeting our ability to label, which is a language that we use to label things, we start labeling things wrong. We start labeling things poorly. Like you said, your friend that couldn't even talk because they're in VR, he's not able to communicate because he's not really labeling this as an importance, right? If he was able to label that as an importance, he would make a decision to put that VR down. Like, let me help this guy out who I live with. I might regret the decision of this gentleman here dying right in front of me while I was in the VR. Right? Decision making capability deteriorates because our labeling has a poor language behind it.
Hmm. Or the consciousness, the human in the loop, didn't really care about his friend at that moment. He's like, yeah, I'm processing, but yeah, it's not a critical action at the moment.
Yeah, I gotta
Human in the
finish
loop.
this mission first.
Yeah, exactly.
But
But
sorry, you want?
oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say like just to end the note, like when we're talking about AIs and like social media and stuff. I think one of the biggest problems is how you were raised. Because like for example, like I know like my parents and like we don't really talk about social media like our like my family friends. Like that's how like one time my parents took away my phone for like 5 6 months, and I realized the importance of like, hey, maybe I don't need to be on my phone that much. So like I average like two and a half 3 hours. But like it's I've seen people where like we were actually having this conversation yesterday where like um parents are so like used to their phone like the phone that they it translates to their kids. Like for example, like if I'm having a conversation with Steven, he's my dad, and I'm just trying to have a conversation. What if he's on my phone? He's like, cool, cool. Then when you get older, you're like, oh, my parents do that. Why can't I? If they're successful and they're doing that, and they're always on their phone, not really listening, why can't I do this? And it's like kind of the psychology we're in right now. It's like because if
Hmm.
like we are always like how we are is how our parents were. And just to end like one more note, one thing I actually found interesting recently was so a lot of this like companies bring in psychologists. Like for example, I wish I really had a better example, but like they like with this Instagram feature, like now you can swipe to the left and then go to the like you can now post on stories and stuff like that once you swipe to the left. They bring in psychologists to like say and they read the like they first people read the data and then they bring in a psychologist like, hey, the data says this, how can we fix our ads? And that's how like other fields are actually getting incorporated into artificial intelligence. They're not like directly um getting involved in artificial intelligence, but like they'll get the recommendations and all the data, and then they'll bring in a third party, be like, hey, this is what our data says from our like from our AI. How can you help us? And that's how we're slowly getting like that's how like things like this are getting bigger because the data is there, but we can only process the data. They need someone else to just like connect the bridge together.
Well, before I knew social media, I knew about Oreos, right? Cookies and Cheetos. They're made to taste in a certain way, so that way your next
Yeah.
bite is good as the first bite. You got the Oreo, you got to share, you got to
I
send it through cyber real quick, please.
get-
It's a study. There's a psychologist that comes into play to say, you are good at making food, but this is how you make your food for the brain. So the brain literally loses itself in order to take the next bite until it's like literally have no capability to feed the body anymore, right? So social media, look, I'm negative portraying social media, even though I know the positive side of social media. And the White House literally had a 16 panel conversation about what social media is doing, how it's negatively impacting to the youth population, how our psychology is changing, excuse me, how our psyche is changing because of social media, and how we are growing as a nation, and how that will impact us in the future. Look, we can go through it all day long for many podcasts. But what we have to come up with is a solution, because that's not one problem. That's a layers of problem, because I don't think you want to live in a world without social media, right? I don't think I do. Even though I don't use social media, but I don't want to live in a world that doesn't have social media. I need that. I need to have social media exist so that way we have that cohesiveness that we didn't have before, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
human history is trials and errors. So, again, Yuval Noah Harari will teach you all the history you need and some more, because he goes into some detail. You're like, I didn't need to know that, but I'm glad I know, right? Um, so it's that need for social media that we have. It's very important. We have it. We had the taste for it. Now, just like Oreo, we're not quitting anytime soon.
Yeah.
I still have Oreo in my pantry, bro. So, um, I want to end with a good note here. Is that artificial intelligence and machine learning will be the power that makes social media do good for us rather than do bad for us, right? So Wally situation that happened, where human have decided that they want to become a gooey like creature that is being fed through a machine without any muscle activity. It's only possible if we decide that that's the meaning of life is, right? So artificial intelligence and machine learning can create beautiful products of arts and beautiful inspirational things for us to be inspired for and use our muscles actually, rather than become this gooey space traveling fellas, right? Sitting on a machine
Skin
not knowing
bag.
what. Skin bags. That's right. That's right. So but even in the movie Wally, there is somebody who's intelligent enough to know the history, intelligent enough to know what the future is like, intelligent enough to know how to control a ship and how to keep the crew in place. Right? Crews are AI, but the humans are still involved. It's just that one human is involved, not all of them. And what we want to do is expand that one to many, right? Because more people are involved in AI machine learning, more decision making capability will come out of it, more meaning will provide to it based on these inspirational AI machine learning output, rather than to say, let the AI do everything. I just want to have Oreos for the rest of my life. Good decision.
Hmm. I'm down with that.
So we're an hour to hour point at this point. So, great conversation can only last for so long, right? After that, we got to go back to reality. So, any departing thought, Rohit?
Um, I guess yeah. Since we've been like kind of talking bad on social media, I'll just say one good note of social media because this happened to me recently. It connects you with your family. Like for example, I don't really have a lot of family in the United States. Like my family is all in India, and we have like a WhatsApp chat that we all like stay together in. So like since we've been talking really bad about social media, I just want to like my departing thought is we I like this podcast because like we talk about the bads of social media, but like there's always a good social media. For example, staying in touch with like relatives and people like that. Like for example, I'm in Arizona and my friends are in Delaware. Sometimes like I might just hop on Instagram, send them a meme or something, and be like, "Hey, I'm alive. It's just I'm busy." But
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's fantastic. And you bring up a good point. Back in the day, and I'll keep it short. We were all decentralized before we had computers and everything was internet connected. It was we were all disconnected, and um, we would all have our ideas, but at the end of the day we didn't know what they were. We just kind of kept them to ourselves. Now with the internet, it's become suggestive now that we all move in herds. Now we're all connected, we're all linked in, and if that's a good thing, great, and if it's a bad thing, who knows. But it comes down to this thing that everyone, and I compare it to what they say, an old saying, and I think Denzel Washington said it. He said it, and that's the only reason I remember it is, and he's talking about the news, but you can relate it to social media, where if you're don't listen to the news, you're not informed, and if you listen to the news, you're misinformed. And that really applies to social media now, because it's like it's not what the truth is, it's just who provides the information first, and that really can convolute and create issues. So who knows how it's going to end up. But at the end of the day, you're right, social media does bring us together. I get messages from my mom every single day: son, I love you. you know She could call me, but now I get it in a text, and we go through about four text messages between us every morning, and that's just enough to say, hey, get that heartbeat. I love you. And then she goes through her life. Social media works great. She sends me pictures. That's the benefit of social media. So you know what? I want to thank you for being on our show today. You're a great representative of technology, and I'm really, really excited about seeing someone like you being able, or at least on the helm, being able to help the generation understand what this new technologies are going to be. And thank you for being on our podcast today. You're
Yeah, thank you
fantastic
for inviting
representative.
me.
Yeah, thank you.
Rohit, ay, 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 ay. Got me pumped up, brother.
Ay, 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 ay.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.